Hello, everybody. Welcome to this here another Ether live stream. Hope you've had a great day. We actually intended to do this a lot earlier in the day, but we've been having some technical difficulties. But with this live stream, we are continuing our series on prophecy. And from time to time here, I'm going to turn away to bring stuff up on the screen. So, like I said, today we're continuing our series on biblical genres, and we're going to talk about prophecy. And really, more specifically, we're going to talk about three things that you need to keep in mind when you're reading a book of the prophets. And some of the prophetic books are books like Isaiah and Jeremiah and Ezekiel and Daniel, and some of the what are called the minor prophets, which are Habakkuk, Joel, and those kinds of books. I actually had a list here, but I can't find it. Sorry about that. And but yeah, so today we're going to talk about three things that you need to keep in mind in order to read a book of prophecy well. Now, let me say this off the bat. We tend to think of the prophetic books as this mysterious sort of books about the future and predicting the future. But the first thing that I want to talk about as far as the three things is the main role of the prophets. The prophets, more than anything, were sent to be the voice of God to their contemporaries about things mostly that were going to happen in the near future. Because of that, one of the best things that you can do when you read a prophetic book is to understand the historical context in which it is happening. I think a lot of times we forget that the Bible was written not necessarily for us, but for a certain people during a certain time in a certain place. And that is certainly the case for the books of the prophets. And it's really important to understand that basically what you're reading is very much time appropriate. And like I said, most of the prophecies that the prophets are telling have to do with a future that is not very far away. And as a matter of fact, the majority of the prophecies that the prophets give in their books have already been fulfilled. And that sort of leads me to the second thing that to keep in mind when you're reading a prophetic book. And that is that not everything that the prophets say is an oracle. And basically what I mean by that is that not everything that they say is about the future. As a matter of fact, a lot of times, especially in the case of Jeremiah, books like Jeremiah and Isaiah, if you read both the first couple chapters of those books, a lot of times the prophets are sent as sort of lawyers, if you will. In both the case of Isaiah and Jeremiah, the first few chapters of those books read like a list of charges that God has against Israel. And so not every single time the prophets open their mouth is about something that is going to A, be bad, and B, that's coming in the future. As a matter of fact, sometimes they bring blessings, and they bring blessings that are going to be good in the near future, again. And also, sometimes they're just literally the voice of God. Many times the prophets will say something like, "This is what the Lord says." And they're literally revealing what God is thinking and feeling. So not everything that the prophets say is about the future. Not everything that they say is about something that's going to happen soon. A lot of it is things that people need to know right here and right now. And by that, I mean the people that the prophets were talking to. And the last thing that you need to keep in mind when you're reading prophetic books is that at the core of every single prophetic book is God's desire to keep his covenants. And in order to really understand this, I have to sort of explain two things. There are two covenants that God keeps all throughout the Bible from the time that the forefathers like Abraham and his descendants come into the picture, all the way through. There are two covenants that God really keeps. One is the covenant that he makes to Abraham, in which he tells him that he is going to make himself, God is going to make himself responsible to give he and his descendants a land. The other covenant has a lot more to do when Israel has already fled Egypt and they're about to enter their land, the land they're going to conquer. And when God gives them the law, basically they enter into a contract in which God tells them that he is going to bless them as long as they're obedient, and he's going to curse them if they're not. And so what we see in the prophetic books is what happens when the nation of Israel is not faithful to their own covenant. Again, like I said, especially in the case of the big books like Jeremiah and Isaiah, they really come, both of them come to really bring judgment upon the land of Israel. And what he tells them is that because they haven't been faithful to him, now he's going to take away their land. At the same time, though, if you read all through the prophetic books, God also puts it upon himself to somehow restore the nation later, which is where Jesus comes in. Jesus is supposed to be a fulfillment of one of God's greatest covenants, in which is to restore Israel to its greatest glory. And so one of the things that we really see in the prophetic books is God's heart and desire to really want to keep his covenants. And I think that goes both ways. One is that he is keeping his promise to Abraham that he's going to make himself responsible for giving him a land to him and his descendants. And the other is the covenant that if Israel was ever unfaithful, he was going to curse them. And that dynamic, you see it all throughout the prophetic books, in which God is doing both things at the same time. And one of the amazing things, and really when you think about the nature of God, is that a lot of times the prophets are sort of announcing things that are bad and things that people are going to suffer, but at the same time, God uses these opportunities to create good. God is by nature good, and therefore everything that he does at some point or another renders itself into a good thing. So those are the three things that you need to keep in mind in order to be a good reader of the prophetic books. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. Please make sure that you listen to our podcast as well. In our podcast, we delve into a lot more detail on a lot of these things. And we're actually going to record one tomorrow, and it should be out sometime later this week. Also, please share these videos and comment on them. We really want to create a community around what we do. And if you really, really like what we do, please consider becoming one of our Patreons and supporting us financially. You can do so by going to patreon.com/EtherMMC. There is a link below this video in which you can go to it. And thank you so much for watching this, and hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions or any comments, make sure to leave it down there, and also subscribe to our channel so you can watch all of our content. Go find our podcast, which you can find it by searching for Ether Podcast anywhere that you listen to podcasts. And also, from time to time, we post things on Reddit if you like to read things and comment on them. So, if you keep up with our Facebook page, we post almost everything there. And thank you so much for watching, and I guess we'll see you on the next one.